Hello again from my front porch, actually this U.S. Capitol front porch. Now, you may hear some other noise going on because there's lots of activity going on around here today. There's some marathon practice, people using the sidewalk that goes up and around the Capitol. There's some event going on over here, actually over here in front of the Capitol with some music and some stuff. You know, I may go over and maybe I'll go over and crash that party. But the reason I'm doing one from here in front of the Capitol is just because it seemed like the right venue to do this. Now, I've said before that I don't try to cover political topics and I don't try to do controversial things here on my front porch episodes. I'm going to kind of veer a little bit from that. You know, I've skirted the line a time or two, but I want to talk about the Electoral College because that's a big hot button thing. But I'm not talking about it from trying to push one view or another. I do have a bias, but I just want to use this as an opportunity to educate, an opportunity to help clarify a bit of understanding and a bit of history that people may not be aware of. Now, for those of you that don't know, you know, now my license is expired now because I haven't done it for a while, but I used to be a licensed teacher in the state of Iowa for journalism, government, and U.S. history, U.S. government and U.S. history, and those are the things I studied in college. And so what I want to share with you is not my personal opinion, not something that some political party said. It's what I know from my studies of history and U.S. government and the way things, you know, were set up to be. And so I'm going to tell you, my personal bias is I'm a big fan of the Electoral College, and I don't think it should be done away with, though there are some who push for that. And let me explain why. There are those that say that we need to get rid of the Electoral College because the president should be a popular vote. See, that's not. That was precisely why the Electoral College exists, because the founders didn't believe it should be a popular vote. You see, the idea that the President of the United States represents the individual people of the United States is inaccurate. That is not the way the system is designed to work, and that's not the way that it has worked for well over 200 years, almost 250 years. See, when the government was set up, you've got two houses, two chambers here. You have the House of Representatives, which is actually the other side of the chamber, and then you have the Senate, which is this side of the chamber. The House of Representatives is the only one that was actually originally designed to be elected by popular vote. It is the one that you have the closest connection to your federal representation, because you elect representatives based on a smaller population-driven area, their district that they're from. Senate on the other side, the Senate actually wasn't even originally popular vote. It wasn't until the 17th Amendment that was passed and finally ratified in 1912, took effect in 1913. It wasn't until then that we actually started voting for members of the Senate by popular vote. Before that, the state legislatures, according to the Constitution, the state legislatures would choose their senators. Why? Because the Senate is not designed to represent the individuals. The Senate represents states. That's why in the Senate, every state, no matter what size they are, gets two senators. California gets the same two senators that Rhode Island gets, two senators for every state. And so originally they were set up to represent the interests of the states. The House of Representatives represents you and me, the people, hence House of Representatives, hence 2-year terms, and also all of those seats go up every 2 years to try to keep it as close to the people as possible. On the Senate side, 6-year term, because it's a deeper investment, more doing the business of government. And as I said, originally not even selected by popular vote. It was intended to be selected by the state legislatures. 17th Amendment changed that, so now the Senate is selected by popular vote, just like the House of Representatives, but still with staggered 6-year terms, meaning only a third of that chamber comes up for re-election in a given election cycle. But then the president was, again, not intended to be a representative of the individuals. The House of Representatives represents the people. The Senate represents the states. The president represents the nation. And as such, the Electoral College was put in place specifically to ensure that you did not have the same population-driven dynamic that elects the House of Representatives, with districts that can evolve and move and change around as populations shift. That same process would not determine who was the president, because if that was done, then every time you elect a president, the president would be selected by those where the largest groups of population were. Those people would always get their way, and they would be able to elect someone into that role that would simply push the agendas that they want. You got to remember, when they created the office of the president, there was even resistance initially to even creating the office of president, because we just fought the Revolutionary War to get away from England. There was concern that having any kind of one-person role like that opened the door to a new monarchy. And so that's why various restrictions were put in place and various limitations, and that's what the Constitution is all about, saying this is what these roles do and what they don't do. And the president was not intended to be a representative of the people. That's what the House of Representatives are. It's in the name. The Senate, the House, and the president, the executive branch. The president is designed to represent the nation as a whole. And as such, the Electoral College was put in place to prevent mob rule, to prevent just a simple majority of people of saying, this is the president we want, because the simple majority would likely come from where population centers were, and you would run roughshod over other areas of the country that did not have similar type of representation. The president is supposed to represent the whole nation, and so the way to create a system that would allow for the entire nation to have a voice is through the Electoral College process. Now, is it perfect? No. But has it worked for well over 200 years, almost 250 years? Absolutely. In fact, it's only become a problem in recent years because of people not getting the candidate elected that they wanted, or not being happy with the candidate who won. That's the way it works. That's how elections happen. You're either happy or you're not happy with how it turned out, and then you fix it by changing things in the next election. But we rapidly are becoming a society in which we're not content with that. We don't like waiting 4 years to fix who's president, for example. And so instead, we do investigations, we do impeachments, we do, whatever scandal investigations, all this kind of stuff, with the intent of trying to drive the person out. And if that doesn't work, well, then we're going to try to change the rules that have stood for well over 200 years so that we can try to prevent certain individuals or certain parties from being able to win, or to increase the chances of certain parties win, whatever the case may be. Whatever the motives are, no matter how noble and pure they are, no matter how political and partisan they are, any effort to eliminate the Electoral College, in my opinion, is not a good idea. The reason our system of government has stood it's been shaky, it's had its problem, absolutely, but the reason it's stood as good as it has for all this time is because the founders were very smart in how they balanced everything out. If there's any issue with our government, it's that it's increasingly growing out of balance, that we've let the executive office of the president become too big, have too much authority, have too much power, independent, apart from this body here, the Congress. And that checks and balance system needs to really be reiterated. And that is something that we're seeing a bit more of now, that we've got the split chambers, and we've got the White House in one hand, and the Congress the vocal in other hands. And so we're seeing a bit of that return that we've missed in some previous administrations. And so that's where we need to focus. But the Electoral College, that really, in my opinion, needs to stay. Now, you may disagree. That's okay. Everybody's entitled to an opinion. But I'm telling you that my reason for saying it needs to stay is because of these historical precedent and the understanding of why these systems were put in place, the foundations as they are, and why they've stood and helped us get to where we are now. So please consider that. If you still want to push to eliminate the Electoral College, well, again, that's your choice. But I wanted to make sure at least you understood the historical and true political underpinnings, not like the creepy, sneaky, twisted political underpinnings, but the actual legitimate underpinnings. So there you go. That's it from our nation's capital, and I'll see you next time from my front porch.